Welcome, everybody. I love seeing our meeting filling up. At last count, I think we had about 100 participants registered. That would be the largest event hosted by the Alabama Women's Affordable Housing Network that we have had in our tiny little Sweet Home Alabama chapter. And we are so honored to have the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta here with us, talk about their affordable housing program. If everyone will just give us a few more minutes, we'll probably get started officially about 11:03, just to give everyone a few more minutes to get online and join us. Thanks again, everyone, for registering and participating. We're excited to have you all here with us today. Folks, continue to join us. We'll officially get started in about a minute. But again, just wanted to welcome the team from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. We're excited to have them with us to share the affordable housing program. I think there's going to be a lot of wonderful information shared this afternoon for folks. We're excited that they reached out to us and that we get to be the first chapter to host these amazing folks from Atlanta who have lots of money that we all want to get a little piece of to help us get our affordable housing projects up and running. So again, thank you to Catherine Sturpa and her team for reaching out. This is a wonderful opportunity, and we're super excited. Folks are still joining, so about one more minute, and we'll get started. All right, we're at about 11:03, so we're going to go ahead and get started. There's a lot of information to cover. My name, for those of you who don't know, is Cindy Prater. I am president of the Alabama Women's Affordable Housing Network. I am based out of Auburn, Alabama, where I work with a for-profit developer in affordable housing, the Bennett Group. Mr. Bennett, our managing partner, has been in affordable housing since 1967. I've only been doing it for about 20 years. But we are so excited, y'all, to have the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta here with us this afternoon to discuss with us their affordable housing program. We were initially approached by Ms. Catherine Sturpa, and so I don't want to take up any of their time. So I'm going to turn this over to Catherine, and she can introduce her team. And I will be sharing my screen with everyone as we go through the presentation. I will ask that if you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. We will be reviewing all of those at the end of the session. Catherine, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy, and thank you to the Alabama chapter for hosting this event and for opening it up to other chapters in our district and allowing us to get the information out. We are working very hard to give money away, so that's part of what we hope to get out of this is that some of that money ends up in Alabama. And so I'm going to read a disclaimer slide as fast as I can so we don't waste any more time on it than we need to, but it is one of the things we're required to do. The information, analysis, and applications contained herein should not be relied upon as a substitute for your own business judgment and independent review. You should consult your own regulatory, tax, business, investment, financial, and accounting advisors and should perform your own suitability analysis before entering into transactions or structures described herein. Sophisticated financial products are risky and are not appropriate for all persons. FHLBank Atlanta is not a registered investment advisor and does not advise persons on the advisability of investing in, purchasing, or selling sophisticated financial products or the means by which any such product may be utilized. Nothing in the information herein should be considered an offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to buy any securities or derivative products. FHLBank Atlanta is not obligated to update or keep current the information or applications contained herein FHLBank Atlanta may own and have a position relative to certain securities or other financial instruments discussed in this information or used in this analysis. Neither FHLBank Atlanta nor any of its directors, officers, employees, agents, attorneys, or representatives shall have any liability for any loss or damage arising out of the use or any or all part of this information. Okay. So welcome everyone. And we have a team of our wonderful staff joining us today. And we also have, to welcome you even further, Althea Broughton, who is a member of our advisory council. And then we will move through the presentations and I'll let each person introduce themselves, but we have all of these folks at your disposal to be resources after the event and during the Q&A. So thank you very much, Althea. I'll turn it over to you.
No, thanks, Kathy. And I'm smiling a little bit because you read that that first slide so elegantly, but I know some lawyer made you do that, and I apologize because I'm a lawyer, but that's just who we are. So thanks for working with us through the disclaimer, but I will take 2 seconds to introduce myself. My name is Althea Broughton, and I am a partner in the law firm of Arnold Golden Gregory, where I represent developers and owners who produce, own, manage, develop affordable housing. I am also a member of the Atlanta chapter of the Women's Affordable Housing Network and was one of the early members along with Rochelle Patton and Ann Cohn, and recently participated in their national summit in Atlanta. So what I love about affordable housing is that it is truly a team effort, an effort that requires partnership. So when 2 organizations that are very special to me, the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta and the Women's Affordable Housing Network, can get together and share information and share best practices, nothing makes me happier. So I am thrilled to see this webinar, and I'm thrilled to support what all of the organizations are doing today. The affordable housing program, very important to us on the council. We spend a lot of time trying to decide the best way to get the money out, to structure the applications, and to make the funds as easy to use and as practical as possible. So I know that there will be a lot of good information and hopefully money that we can get out the door to fund the incredibly important need of affordable housing. So welcome. Thank you for joining us today. And with that, I will turn it over to Shadante.
Thank you, Althea. So good, well, I guess it's technically 11 o'clock Central Time, so I'll start with good morning. So thank you all so much for taking time to join us today. We are so excited to have the opportunity to talk with you about the affordable housing programs that we offer at the bank. So my name is Shadante Butler. My very long title is Senior Affordable Housing Program Relationship Manager. And essentially what that means is I work with our member banks and our community organizations to help you all take advantage of our affordable housing program. So I have the fun role of helping to get some of this money out the door. And we certainly hope that this webinar today will provide you with good information to help get some of this money into your communities. So as I'll start just by talking a little bit about who and what we are. So again, Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, you may know we're one of 11 Federal Home Loan banks throughout the country. We really have sort of a dual purpose or dual mission. So one of our missions is to really make sure we're providing low-cost funding and helping our member banks with their liquidity needs. And the other part of that mission is to make sure that we're providing funds that can help our members with either affordable housing or community development needs in the communities they serve. So again, this webinar today is really essential in helping us get information out and helping us hopefully get the funds we'll talk about out the door. So we have the great announcement and a great opportunity to tell you all that this year for the Atlanta Bank, we have over $100 million that we're allocating to affordable housing. We'll talk to you about how those funds are being deployed and how you can take advantage of those funds. So our member banks, so you'll hear me talk a lot about member banks as we go through this, and that is because we are structured as a co-op. So we are owned by our members. Our members join FHLBank Atlanta, they purchase stock in us. And so our funds that we'll talk about today are deployed through our member financial institutions. So a little bit about the financial highlights. So as an organization, we have about $142 billion in assets. We have about just over $96 billion in advances. And those are loans that we're making to our member financial institutions that they in turn can deploy in their communities. So $96 billion. So we're excited about that number. Our net income for the first quarter, $194 million. And the reason why that net income number is important, you'll see in just a minute, the net income determines exactly how much money we're able to deploy to our affordable housing programs. So we currently have 794 financial institutions that are members of FHLBank Atlanta. And on the next slide, you'll see the composition of those member financial institutions. So you can see we represent, out of that just under 800 members, a great number of banks. We also have insurance companies that are members of FHLBank Atlanta, credit unions, 247 credit unions, and then CDFIs. So CDFIs are the most recent addition to membership for the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta, or all federal home loan banks. And so we're excited that we have 14 CDFIs that are members of FHLBank Atlanta. So again, these institutions represent the conduit for you to access our affordable housing program. So on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about exactly how we fund our affordable housing programs. So we often get questions about the source of these funds. Are these government funds? How exactly do you generate these funds to support affordable housing? So these funds, every year, we are required to allocate at least 10% of our earnings to affordable housing. So we refer to that as our community dividend. So our members receive a dividend based on their membership, but they also have the opportunity to tap into this community dividend. And I mentioned that we're required to do 10%, but the great thing about our advisory council and consultation with our board, for the last couple of years, we've really gone above and beyond that required 10% and allocated 15% of our net earnings to support affordable housing. So again, excited to have the opportunity to talk with you all about how those funds are being used. And so while that 10% or 15% may not sound like a large number, over the years, as you can see, it's represented over $1 billion that the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta has allocated to affordable housing, and just under 180,000 affordable housing units that have been financed using our funds. So we look forward to working with you all to continue to grow those numbers. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So I know there's a lot on this slide, but I just want to give you a brief overview of what we offer in the affordable housing and economic development space. And we'll go into, in particular, the general fund and the homeownership set-aside programs in more detail. But this is just, again, a quick overview of what's available. So the general fund, you have the opportunity to hear from Julia Brown in just a moment about our general fund. But it is where we are able to allow our members to partner with community organizations and affordable housing developers to apply for this year up to $1 million per project through a competitive application process. So that is one part of that required 10% or now 15% that we have done over the last couple of years. Part of that funding goes to the AHP General Fund. Part of it also goes to what we call our homeownership set-aside program. And you'll have the opportunity to hear from Maxima Sims about this program. But for those of you that are active in the homeownership space, this is where we allocate funds directly to help either low to moderate income home buyers or homeowners either purchase their homes, or in some cases, we also provide funds for rehabilitation as well. So I'm sure Maxima is excited to share with you kind of what we offered this year, as well as a new product that we just rolled out earlier this month. So more details to come on that. And then the last thing you'll see on this slide, our advanced products. So as I mentioned, our advances are loans that we provide to our members so that our members can in turn make sure that they are meeting the needs of their community from a lending perspective. If our members are able to show that they're using funds to support either affordable housing or economic development. So example would be lending to small businesses or lending to businesses that serve low to moderate income areas under the economic development program. Or for the community investment program, if they're using the funds to provide fund for developers, or they're providing funds for borrowers that are getting mortgages that are low to moderate income, that's where those programs would come in, where they're able to actually get a discount on their borrowing rate from the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. So for our members that may be on the call, would love to have the opportunity to talk with you about those discounted advance rates as well. But that's an overview of what we offer. So now we'll go into each of those programs in a little bit more detail, starting with Julia to talk about the AHP General Fund. Julia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Shadante. Hi, everybody. I'm Julia Brown. I am the multifamily portfolio manager here at the Federal Home Loan Bank. Let's talk about the general fund and how it can be used to help you develop and build affordable housing. Earlier this year, the Federal Home Loan Bank announced a record $55 million that Shadante referenced earlier in available funds through our 2024 Affordable Housing Program, the General Fund. Next slide, please. So this year we have up to $1 million available per project. And this is to support the acquisition, construction, or rehabilitation of multifamily and single-family housing projects. This is an increase over last year's maximum subsidy per project of $750,000. So not only do we have a record $55 million to grant, we also have up to $1 million per project, which we are very excited about. Next slide, please. To piggyback off of what Shadante has already mentioned a little bit, to give a little bit of background on the General Fund program, every year the bank commits to 10% of its annual net income to AHP. And like Shadante had mentioned, this has been increased up to 15%. But it's important to know that these funds are not tax dollars. But these funds are also, they're a flexible source of gap funding to help develop affordable housing for very low to moderate income families and individuals. So for rental projects, the infusion of the AHP funds into the project allow you to reduce your debt on the project. And with lower debt, your debt service is also lower, which then allows you to target lower income households with lower rents. And we'll get into that a little further with a couple examples of that. Another fundamental of the program is that projects can be located anywhere in the United States. The AHP funds, however, can only be accessed through a member of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta. So we have a footprint of projects that are located within our district. It's 8 states and the District of Columbia. That's going to be Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. So the AHP General Fund is a competitive program in which all the applications are submitted once per year, then they're ranked from highest to lowest. So at that point, we'll underwrite the applications in order from highest to lowest score until all of the funds have been committed. Just stay on this slide, if you will. So if you look at the slide that's presented here, you can see the eligible project types, the rental projects, typical apartment homes, new construction, supportive housing, owner-occupied rehab, ownership, which is a single-family projects, rehabilitation, mixed use, and down payment assistance. But please take note that what it cannot be used for is for non-residential costs, operating subsidies, empowerment activities, housing while undergoing medical treatment, or university housing. Next slide, please. Okay, what makes AHP different from other sources of funds? Well, AHP funds are what we call a direct subsidy. So no interest accrues and there is no expectation of repayment if the project continues to do the things that we're committed to in the application. We'll get into that a little bit further with the scoring. But to reiterate what was mentioned on the last slide, for the 2024 application, the maximum direct subsidy per project is $1 million for all applications and all applications and locations. So there is no difference in what the max subsidy can be based on where the project is located. The AHP funds are secured with a note and a mortgage. For rental projects, the AHP retention period is 15 years and there is no partial forgiveness. However, for ownership projects with a transfer of ownership, the retention period is 5 years. The AHP subsidy is forgiven on a prorated basis over that 5-year period. There is no retention on owner-occupied rehabilitation units. The maximum income for an AHP-assisted household is 80% of area median income. However, mixed income projects are eligible so long as at least 20% of the units are reserved for very low income households. Okay, on this next slide, you can see some examples of projects that we have funded and that we're very proud to be a part of. You know, these projects are located in South Carolina, Maryland, Florida, and Virginia here. And all of these are rental projects, as you can see, but we also have several that are ownership projects as well. Now, on the next several slides, we're going to go into some details about how the general fund can make your projects feasible. And for the projects that are already feasible, how AHP can make them even better. Okay, on this slide that we're looking at here, this is an example of a 52-unit senior rental project with 9% low-income housing tax credits. The total development budget of $7 million was funded in part by general fund dollars and the shareholders' first mortgage. Okay, go ahead and make 2 more clicks for me, please. Okay, based on the project's income and expense statement or the pro forma, the member LTV would have been 9.2% and the debt coverage ratio would have been 0.56 if hard debt was used instead of the AHP equity infusion. This is clearly not a feasible project. Okay, make 2 more clicks for me, please. Because of the AHP, the member LTV went down to 2.6% and the debt coverage ratio went up to 2.14, which is very possible to get a funder interested in. Note that for projects with a debt coverage ratio above the bank's AHP guideline of 1.50, an alternate need of subsidy test may be used. We can talk about that later. If you have any questions about that, just contact me after this presentation and we can walk through that specifically for your project. Next slide, please. So this is a sample rental project, this time with 8 units. The total development budget of $1.1 million was funded in part by AHP General Fund equity and the shareholders' first mortgage again. Okay, click 2 more times for me. Based on the project's income and expense statement, the member LTV in this case would have been 34.4% and the debt coverage ratio would have been 1.14 if hard debt was used instead of the AHP equity infusion. Okay, click 2 more times for me. Because of our equity, the HP equity, the member LTV here decreased to 25.9% and the debt coverage ratio improved to 1.51. Which obviously makes this project a lot more feasible. Okay, next slide, please. And this is the last example we'll walk through. This one is for a home ownership project. This one is for an ownership project with 8 units with a total development budget of $2.4 million, also funded in part with general fund equity. Click twice for me, please. Without the AHP funds, the first mortgage for this home buyer, the LTV would be 68% and the mortgage amount would be just over $206,000. Based on market terms, the mortgage payment would be approximately $1,291 per month. Okay. Perfect, thank you. When adding in the AHP, the LTV would then go down to 37%. And the mortgage would be only $705 a month, which is a 45% reduction in the home buyer's mortgage payments. Next slide, please. This chart shows the scoring categories for the AHP applications. You can find more detail about these scoring categories in the implementation plan that can be found on the bank's corporate website. but also feel free to reach out to me and we can go through each of these categories with you in more detail if you would like. This year for the 2024 round, there's 14 categories that make up a 100-point maximum score. Most of these categories can be self-scored. However, that excludes targeting to lower income households and AHP subsidy per unit, because these two categories are based on a weighted average of all of the applications that we will receive this year. So those two categories cannot be self-scored. This year, the new category is the subsidy per unit. We have a few other modifications to the scoring categories from last year. Again, we can go over those in more detail later. Also of note, my contact information is at the very last slide, should you need it. Okay. This is an example of a project that we have funded. You know, again, this is a Habitat for Humanity project, ownership project with City First Bank. The AHP amount that was funded on this one was $75,000, and it had a total development budget of $1.9 million. This was for a project that was 6 homes located in Washington, D.C., and included a mixture of 2- and 3-bedroom units with some green standards that they were abiding by. This next one is another example. This is Old Savannah Mission. This was done with Carver State Bank. In this particular project, the AHP amount was $250,000 with a total development budget of $424,000. This one was a renovation of an existing historic building. And this one is a supportive housing project that's created transitional housing. Okay, next slide. This slide shows this year's schedule for the round as well as 2025. This year's round opens on June 27th, which is obviously very close to now. That's a week from today, and closes on July 29th. The underwriting period will commence after the close of the round, and awards will be announced in December of this year. For 2025, the round will open in May. It will close in June, and the awards will be announced in October. We intentionally stagger the timing of the round each year so that we're not favoring any particular state in regard to approval schedules or of other funding sources. If you have any questions or would like to discuss a particular project, again, please do not hesitate to contact me or any of the analysts on the multifamily team. My contact information is included later in this presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to Maximus Sims to discuss the set-aside program.
Thank you, Julia. Hello, everyone. My name is Maximus Sims, and as Shadanta mentioned before, I am the homeownership portfolio manager here at the bank, and I manage all the homeownership programs for the bank, and it is a pleasure to be here with you today. We're excited. You could show the next slide. Thank you. We're excited that this year, the homeownership set-aside program has committed over $40 million in funding. The funding is available for home buyers and homeowners, households that are at or below 80% of the area median income. The funds can be used for down payment assistance to reduce first mortgage principal, down payment assistance, closing costs, or rehabilitation costs. On the next slide, what I will cover with you is that the homeownership set-aside program, under the umbrella of the homeownership set-aside program, we offer 3 products. 2 are geared towards purchase products, and then 1 is geared, as Shanta mentioned earlier, rehabilitation, which is for owner-occupied properties. The first-time home buyer product, it is a purchase-only product. It is for home buyers. It offers up to $12,500 for down payment assistance cost. And I will go over more details later in the presentation. The second one is a community partners product, which offers up to $15,000 of down payment assistance also towards the purchase of a home. And then the next one, like I said, it is not a purchase product, but that one is the community rebuild and restore product, which it offers up to $10,000 towards rehabilitation funds of an existing home. The funds are available on a first-come, first-served basis via our member financial institutions, just like the general fund, as Julia mentioned. And each one of our members has a funding limit of $750,000 as long as the funds are available. On the next slide, for the first-time homebuyer product, the product offers up to $12,500 in down payment assistance funds towards the purchase of a home for applicants that meet the definition of a first-time home buyer as defined by HUD, which also includes victims of a catastrophic loss or natural disaster. For the Community Partners product, the Community Partners product offers up to $15,000 in down payment assistance towards the purchase of a home for those who currently are either employed or retired, law enforcement officers, educators, healthcare workers, firefighters, or other first responders, also veterans, active duty military, or their surviving spouses. Some examples of who would qualify as an educator is someone that works in the cafeteria of a state certified school, or someone who's in the administration, for example. So when you think of an educator, it's not just someone who is a teacher. So if you're thinking about who would qualify for the Community Partners product, think about someone who is a janitor, for example, someone who is in the front office. Those individuals also qualify as an educator. So when we, when our members partner look at, when our members look at key keepers, they look at PTAs, for example, to look for potential home buyers in the Community Partners product. Similarly, for the law enforcement officers, it could be someone who is in the administration. So someone who's in the front office also would qualify for the Community Partners product. We can move on to the next slide. So as I mentioned before, the Community Rebuild and Restore product is not a purchase product. This is a rehabilitation product for owner-occupied home buyers for an owner-occupied property. And it does offer up to $10,000 in funding. The funds must be used for a property that is located in an area that it is deemed as an emergency declaration or a disaster declaration as defined by FEMA, within no more than 36 months from the application date, so when the member submits the application to us. Additionally, the homeowner must have owned the property at least 30 days at the time of application. And we are so excited, so excited. And I know Althea is as well, because she is part of our AHAC. And so we worked very hard for a few years to finally offer this product. But we're excited to announce that the bank launched our Workforce Housing Plus program with an allocation of $10 million to provide our members with a product option to respond to the workforce housing challenges for middle income workers that are above the 80% limit, which is the AHP income limit, right? The affordable housing limit that I just covered, right? That's the 80%. And so those home buyers, those potential home buyers, are in need in down payment assistance sources that the bank's district has not been able to provide resources for, and now we do. This program offers a solution for those home buyers that are between 80.01% of the area median income to 120% of the area median income. The subject properties, although the subject properties must be within the bank's district. And so that is Alabama, DC, Florida, Georgia, Maryland, North and South Carolina, and Virginia. All of the funding must be distributed exclusively through our member financial institutions. And the funds are also provided on a first-come, first-served basis. The funding began on June 3rd, and the funds will be available through either when the funds are depleted or until December 15th of this year. Each of our members has a funding limit of $500,000. All of the applications must be submitted via our members through our electronic portal, which is FHLB ASAP. We're excited that the program will provide, will be accessible, through our members to provide these resources to first-time and non-first-time home buyers. Again, the funds will be available on a first-come, first-served basis. And the subsidy amount is up to $15,000. The properties must be for primary residents. The subject properties must be for primary residents. And the funds can be used for down payment assistance to reduce the first mortgage principal, closing costs, and also rehabilitation costs. And when we say rehabilitation costs in the purchase transactions, we are referring to transactions such as a 203K, for example. Other requirements worth noticing is that the program requires the home buyer to go through one of our prescribed financial literacy counseling programs by one of our designated counseling providers. There's also no retention requirements under the Workforce Housing Plus program, meaning that there will be no lien recorded on the property. And so it is forgiven at the time of closing. So again, the program is income based, and so which means the household must be at between 80.01% of the area median income and to 120% of the area median income. There is a minimum homebuyer requirement contribution, and that is that the household contributes $1,000 towards the transaction, and the borrower cannot get more than $250 back at closing, And that is regardless of how much they put into that transaction. We do offer a what you would call or could call a pre-qualification tool on our corporate website. And our members use it very frequently to predetermine the potential applicants that qualify for the program. And so the tool is very useful. You could also use it on the go. The tool is very user-friendly. All you have to do is enter the HUD year, select the state, county, and input the household income for all of the household members over the age of 18. Click the Calculate AMI button, and you will obtain the results to determine whether the households are within the AHP limit, which is the 80% at or below 80% of AMI, or if they are between the or greater the 80% of AMI. And lastly, if you want to connect with one of our participating members in our website, in our corporate website, you will have the member locator tool to identify any participating members, whether it is for the general fund or the homeownership programs. And with that, Shadante, that concludes everything that Julia and I had to cover. I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks, Maxima. So, as Cindy mentioned at the beginning, we're happy to take any questions you may have through the chat feature. We have received a couple of questions already that I think it may be helpful to share with the group. Julia, I think we'll start with the questions related to the general fund, if you don't mind. One question is, how many applications can I submit? So if I have more than one project going on and I think may qualify, is there a limit on how many applications I can submit?
We do not have a limit on the number of applications or the total amount of funding a sponsor or a member can request. The only limitation of this type is that we have the maximum funding per project of the $1 million.
Got it. Thanks, Julia. So another question. What score do I need to win an HP award?
Unfortunately, we can't really tell you that because it's not something that we can predict for several reasons. One, the scoring categories change each year, and the applicant pool changes each year. So, and the amount of AHP funds also changes each year. So more money means more awards and theoretically a lower minimum winning score. Remember, though, that we have over $55 million available this year, so this would be a good year to apply if you're on the edge of deciding whether to submit or not.
Okay, thanks. Another question was just submitted. Will there be clear documentation or templates in the application portal on June 27th for what we need to include in order to adequately evidence different criteria for scoring? Also, will there be a template for the budget and the pro forma?
Okay, I'll answer this in two parts. The budget and the pro forma are actually in the system itself, in our system called AHP Build. So that is the template. There's not a separate template that is used that is outside documentation. The first part about the clear documentation, yes, we have been working very hard this year to go over our forms and to try to be very clear about what's required, what's not, what's acceptable documentation, and what's not. So if you have any question about that, we are available. Me and my team are available to help walk through any questions that you have during the application period, as well as now, if you prefer to discuss your project.
Okay. And a follow-up question on that, do forms need a wet signature or is an electronic signature permissible?
Electronic signatures are permissible. We have fillable PDF forms that can be filled out electronically. should you choose to do it that way, but wet signatures are fine as well, just scanned and sent in, emailed in to us. So either route is okay.
Perfect. And Julia, one more question. So for anyone that has not applied in the past, that has not completed the process to get access to the HP Build portal that you referenced earlier, can you talk just a little bit about the process for them to get access?
Sure. We have a registration process that you'll need to go through, and there is a link on our corporate website. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to find. So if you want to contact me directly, I can get you in contact with my team members that are directly working on getting those registrations submitted. And they can give you a list of the documentation that you'll need, and you can kind of describe your setup so they can give you the exact documents that you need to send in to make that process very easy and flawless. So I would suggest reaching out to me, and I'll get you in contact with the right people.
Awesome. Thanks, Julia. So what I'm hearing is your team is ready and willing to help wherever they're needed. Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Maxima, a couple of questions for you, if you don't mind. And I think you may have referenced it earlier, but just confirming. So for the programs that you've talked about, the HP Set Aside Homeownership, as well as the new Workforce Housing Plus program, can you confirm where those funds can be used?
Yeah, so the funds can be used for down payment assistance, closing costs, or to reduce principal.
Okay. And geographically, are they, I think you may have referenced it earlier, but geographically?
Oh,
for those
yeah,
on the
so
call now.
geographically, for the AHP Set Aside program, they can be used anywhere in the United States. And for the Workforce Housing Plus program, it is within the bank's district. So in DC, in just within the bank's district. So it would be Georgia, Maryland, Florida, and South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, and Virginia.
Okay, thank you, Maxima. So Julia, if you don't mind, we're getting more questions for you, so we're going to come back to you for just a minute.
Sure.
So do you have a maximum limit for per unit development cost or per unit HP request amount?
No. Now keep in mind that there is a scoring category this year of subsidy per unit. So in order to get the max amount of points in that category, though, the per unit amount or cost would need to be lower as opposed to higher. So you may want to keep that in mind.
Perfect, thank you. So this next question, do you have an estimate for how long it takes a first-time applicant to be approved? And I'm assuming that's referring to the sponsor registration process?
Okay, yeah. Okay, I read that question wrong. So it really depends on how quickly you get the documentation that we need in order to approve it. Sometimes that can happen in the same day. Sometimes it takes a day or two. Generally, that has to do with, getting the information that we need, whether it's an operating agreement, whether it's, something else. And it kind of depends on how your entity is set up. So we have been churning through them pretty quickly. So I would say once you get the documents into us, it should be about a day that you could, from that point, there should be about a day until you get the approval to get into the system. But just one more comment there. Just so all of you are aware, the application itself will not be available until the round opens on June 27th. So even if you do gain access to the system, that application, to be fair to everyone, that application will not be available until the 27th.
Perfect. Thanks, Julia. One more question. Are external rehabilitation costs allowable, such as patio, driveway, sidewalk, etc.?
Yes.
Perfect. Quick and easy answer. All right. So that actually concludes all of the questions that we have through the chat feature right now. Kathy, I'll check in with you just to see if you have anything you'd like to add. And then Cindy and team, we're happy to turn it back over to you all as well to close us out. But again, we appreciate your time today. We hope this information has been helpful. We realize in a lot of cases it may trigger more questions about your particular projects and things like that. So again, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help with the process as much as we can. But we appreciate you all joining us today to learn more about the programs that we have available.
Great, thanks, Shadante. And I would reiterate that we are staffed with people that can answer the phone. We do not just go to voicemail. We have people that you can talk to about your specific situation. And also reiterate, we have more money this year than we have had in any other year. So if you're thinking about applying, this is the year to do it. It's a great program. It's a grant. So those are hard funds to come by, but it's very valuable, and the application is not a LIHTC application. It's not that hard. So if you're doing any kind of application for any other funds, you've probably already got the material. So please take advantage. And with that, I want to thank our hosts for allowing us to engage with you all, and hopefully we can get some of this money into Alabama and to anywhere else in our district.
Catherine, thank you so much. Julia, Shadante, Maxima, all of you, thank you again for sharing your time with us this afternoon. It has been so insightful, so educational. I know that the folks who joined us are excited to get a copy of that implementation plan and start digging into it. This has been wonderful. We are so excited about these programs, and also on a personal note, for anyone who might be concerned, I can tell you that with partners we've worked with, that the team at the Federal Home Loan Bank of Atlanta is one of the friendliest, most accessible folks, a group of folks that we've dealt with. Any problems such as access to portal, technical issues that you might run into in completing your application, any questions you have, they are always super responsive and ready and eager to help. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody with money for affordable housing that's been so easy to access and interact with. So again, thank you all so very much. I have left the contact names up on our screen for anyone who might need to touch those or write those down so that you can touch base with these ladies. Also, this meeting has been recorded, and so I'm sure at some point that the Women's Affordable Housing Network will be getting that out to folks who participated in today's call. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate Catherine and her team so much, and just the participation level. This has been wonderful and exciting, and I'm sure we'll be flooding your portal as soon as the application opens. Julia, Catherine, Shadante, Maxima, thank you all again. Everyone have a wonderful afternoon. And please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns or comments that you might have. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.